What's going on, guys? Hope you guys are doing well and staying safe. So, as some of you may know, when I first started this channel, I actually started with a Persona 4 Golden Let's Play. So before I started focusing on Kingdom Hearts, I was very much a Persona channel. But when I kinda started figuring out what it is I wanted to do, I started focusing on Kingdom Hearts. And since there wasn't really much happening outside of the Persona 5 Strikers trailer that released recently, I didn't really cover Persona 5. This year though, I do want to focus on other JRPGs including Persona while still doing Kingdom Hearts content. So all that to say, I love Kingdom Hearts, but I also love Persona as well. They're like two sides of the same coin. Even in my other intro, I do have Joker's Mask and Sora's Crown equal, but since the channel started growing, it's really been more like this. So I kinda want to start doing things to even it out. Which brings me to the topic of today's video. So the release of Persona 5 Strikers is nearly upon us, coming out February 23rd after a lengthy wait for those of us in the West. It comes as a sequel to the original Persona 5 that released in 2017. But with the release of a certain Persona 5 Royal, there's an interesting question on my mind, and I'm sure some of you have been thinking the same thing. Should Persona 5 Strikers have DLC for Persona 5 Royal? Well, that's what we're gonna get into today. But before we get into what I think about it, if you want to see more content of JRPGs like Persona, Kingdom Hearts, or The Legend of Zelda, make sure you subscribe with notifications on. And if you know someone who would like this or any of my other videos, go ahead and share it with them. Also, this video will contain spoilers for Persona 5 Royal and the new content, so if you haven't finished the story, I suggest you proceed with caution. And now, on to the video. So Persona 5 Strikers has been here for a while. It's been out for almost a year in other countries. But personally, I've been avoiding the story and everything since I saw the trailer for it last year. Even so, I've seen things talking about just funny scenes and stuff like that here and there on Twitter, and I'm really excited to put out content on it for you guys when the game releases. That being said though, out of the few things I've heard and seen, I know that Kasumi, Akechi, and Maruki do not show up in Persona 5 Strikers. If you haven't played Persona 5 Royal, Kasumi is a new character that shows up in Shujin and a character that's exclusive to Persona 5 Royal, much like Marie in Persona 4 Golden. Aside from some new cutscenes and new sequences that happen in the base game before what my friend and I call the Royal Semester, she doesn't really have a huge overall impact on the story. Her confidant when you start it starts with only 5 stars, which is of course very different from the original 10, as the rest is only unlocked as you go through the story and end up in the Royal Semester, because that's where most of her story takes place. So as a character in the base game, she doesn't really have an impact on the story outside of some extra interactions, which doesn't necessarily call for an entire expansion. And Maruki is a character that's a guidance counselor that shows up after you defeat Kamoshida. And the same goes for Maruki. He was kind of inconsequential as far as what happened in the base game, because much like Kasumi, he didn't really cause any drastic changes to the base game. Since he's a guidance counselor, you get to see a bit more of the main characters, a couple scenes that weren't in the base game, along with the new confidant and stuff like that, but other than that, he doesn't really do much for the main story. Much like Kasumi, his story is heavily tied to the extra semester. And Akechi sucks. However, despite that, I do think Persona 5 Strikers needs some sort of DLC or expansion to expand more on the story that was introduced in Royal. The new characters, while they don't really have an impact on what made up the base game of Persona 5, really undergo some great changes during the Royal Semester that also affect our heroes. Kasumi had a really good and engaging story throughout the new semester, with her essentially finding herself, and I think while Maruki not my favorite boss fight or palace, that honor goes to Shido, I think his reason for doing what he did and giving everyone their ideal lives provided some moral gray area that was really interesting to see and provided some much needed growth for the main characters. And then the ending of Persona 5 Royal with everyone moving on and going to live their individual lives was a really nice take and make me like those characters even more now that they're actually going to pursue their goals as individuals. And it'd be nice to see Persona 5 Strikers sort of develop on that. It would be great to spend time with these characters after their developments after the end of Royal to see how it really affects them as individuals in the long run. Because Strikers, while it's cool that we get a sequel in the first place, I think a DLC would be a great way to expand a little bit and actually tie up what happened in the post-credit scene with Akechi. It makes sense why the content from Royal didn't make it into the base game, because as far as the development cycle goes, Persona 5 Scramble went into development in 2016 when the original Persona 5 came out. So in that aspect, it makes sense that Strikers is a sequel to the original game. But Persona 5 Royal began development and was kind of confirmed to be an actual game in about 2017. So while that's a good amount into the development cycle for Scramble, I think talking about a DLC to incorporate the new content into the story would be reasonable. Since Persona 5 Royal is the definitive experience, it would make sense that some sort of additional content would be needed to accommodate the changes that happen with our characters and also work in the new characters from Persona 5 Royal into the story. Cause I'm gonna be honest, it's a little weird that there's a sequel to the base game but not the definitive Persona 5 experience. And even with the ending of Persona 5 Royal, again with Akechi possibly being alive, it sort of teased some sort of sequel game, and it might be hinting at some sort of Persona 5 Royal Strikers or something along those lines. Honestly, given Persona's history, I wouldn't be surprised if we got a Strikers re-release with new content or something along those lines, because we did get something like that when Persona Q released in 2014 and Persona Q2 released in 2018. But either way, I think as far as Persona 5 Strikers goes, I think getting some sort of DLC or expansion is not necessarily outside the realm of possibility when it comes to the future development of the game. Even so though, DLC or not, I've been waiting for this game to release in the West, and I'm sure all of you can say the same in that I cannot wait to go on another adventure with the Phantom Thieves because the gameplay looks amazing, and while I haven't listened to the music, it also sounds amazing, and I'm really looking forward to sharing the experience with you guys. But if you think Persona 5 Strikers should get a DLC or an expansion, let me know down below in the comments. And if you like the content and want to check out some more of my stuff, make sure you leave a like. And finally, if you want to join the community, make sure you join the official Guardians of Twilight Discord and subscribe with notifications on. I'll catch y'all next time. This is Moose Wayne, signing off.